Today, we're going to be showing you 10 ChatGPT hacks that are going to level up your ChatGPT prompt game. We're going to take you from regular old boring prompts to make you a ChatGPT power user. Hey everyone, my name is Josh, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you the top 10 hacks that I honestly use on a daily basis in my ChatGPT usage. These are hacks that a lot of people don't actually know about beyond just the regular systems that ChatGPT shows, and can really allow you to take your game to the next level. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Now, first and foremost, when it comes to writing a really strong ChatGPT prompt, many people don't realize that the true strength in ChatGPT is its ability to understand context. Essentially, the more context that you can give ChatGPT when it comes to asking your questions, the better responses you're going to get. So let's say, for example, I wanted ChatGPT to write a piece of code for me, or write a task for me, or really write anything that requires some sort of context. So if I just said, write a grocery list, for example. So I'll say, write a grocery list for me. Write a grocery list for me. Yes, if we put that into ChatGPT, it's going to, give a very basic grocery list. It's going to pull all the different things like proteins, grains, healthy fats, but there's really no context to why I'm asking it this. It doesn't have any resources to pull from when it comes to crafting a response that is detailed to my specifications. So by providing context about situations, I can actually take my ChatGPT game to the next level. Because something I see a lot of people doing is when they don't get the response they want, they just take the old prompt that they just did and just make it a little bit more detailed and then put that back in. That's not the most efficient way to make your ChatGPT game on the next level. Essentially, what you can do is actually reference previous conversations or parts of a conversation that you've had with ChatGPT and allow you to level up your game so that you can have a better output. So let's say, for example, I wanted to add a little bit of context to this prompt. I could go and add more detail to it, but the most efficient way for me to go and actually level up this prompt is to actually take what the response ChatGPT gave me was and just utilize part of it. So say, for example, I look through here and I'm like, ugh, this is all yucky, I hate it. But the grains and legumes section, I want to keep that in. So now my new prompt is, write a grocery list for me, but don't add any items to this list except for the grains and legumes section from this list. Essentially, I can take specific portions of my ChatGPT response and tell it to reference that when it's giving me its next output. So instead of ChatGPT having to go from step one, it can start to work back from what I liked about what it just gave me and tweak it to be a little bit better, instead of me just trying to constantly have it go and start from zero every single time. So if I ask it to write this now, I can see that it's going to write a grocery list that's completely just the grains and legumes. So this is why we move on to step number 2. Use specific prompts. Now, obviously providing as much context as you physically can is the best way to get ChatGPT responses that are to your liking, but being specific too is great as well. As we can see here, I wrote, write a grocery list for me, don't add any new items to this list except for grains and legumes. So obviously it didn't actually go and add any new items at all because it didn't understand the context of what I wanted, but I also wasn't specific enough. So let me just adjust this thing that I said really quick here, except I don't, because I know the context. So I say, no, actually add new items. You can see here that the prompt I'm giving ChatGPT on its own, if I say, no, actually add new items, wouldn't make any sense. But because it can reference the previous part of the conversation on which we're already having, it allows it to not start from zero, but start from where it was at. So if I hit enter here, we can see that it's going to go ahead and take that list that we just did with the grains and legumes, but it's also going to add all these new things that aren't on the original list. Giving it a little bit more context and specificity gives me a better output the first time or the second time or the third time, because if I know what I actually want ChatGPT to do from the start, if I give it the context, if I give it the specificity, I don't have to go through the process of chatting back and forth just to get what I want. And that brings us on to step number 3, which is ask ChatGPT to fulfill a specific role. Of course, this thing right here is going to be a great grocery list. But if I'm looking for a little bit more context, specificity, and I want ChatGPT to play the role of someone, let's say a nutritionist, for example, if I'm trying to build a healthy meal plan, then I can tell ChatGPT to fulfill that specific role. So now I'm telling ChatGPT to fulfill a specific role. I'm saying, you are a nutritionist. Curate this list so that it gives me a 250 to 500 calorie surplus. And if we hit enter on that, ChatGPT now understands that it is playing the role of a nutritionist. So now it's going to start to consider all the things that a nutritionist would consider. Maybe a little bit more than what it would have if I just asked it, create a grocery list manually. So as we can see here, there's a whole bunch of different items that it's putting in that weren't in the initial setup. Also, it's giving me tips to ensure a calorie surplus. So it's actually fulfilling that role of a nutritionist. Now, on its own, it wouldn't have done that. but by telling it the specific role it should play, it's leveled up its prompt game and allowed it to bring in more useful resources for what my specific purposes in asking these questions are. Now, number 4 is a huge one. A lot of people don't know this exists, is that you can actually have custom instructions assigned to your ChatGPT account. Let me show you what I mean. Now, throughout this whole process, when I started this conversation, there was no previous context whatsoever. There was no previous specifics. It was all just starting from zero. But with ChatGPT custom instructions, which are built directly into your account, ChatGPT can start a conversation the same way every single time. So if we go here to the top right corner and we hit Customize ChatGPT, yep, I bet you didn't know that was there. We can see here that there are actually custom instructions. What would you like ChatGPT to know about you to provide better responses? And we have up to 1,500 characters to provide that custom instruction. Also, how would we like ChatGPT to respond? Another 1,500 instructions. So if we have a specific way that we like ChatGPT to talk to us, we can curate those instructions so that we're not starting from zero every single time. And this kind of builds into something we're going to talk about in a little bit here, but at the baseline, it allows ChatGPT to have a bit of context about who you are, what your instructions are going to be, how it should respond. You can craft it to be the perfect response the way that you want it to be. And I'm saying that without you having to bounce a conversation back and forth 10 times before you get the answer you want. Also within this, we can see that there are actually GPT-4 capabilities. Now, depending on whether you're actually paying for it, you might get a little bit different of an option here, but for most people, they have GPT-4 capabilities, which can choose which tools to use with ChatGPT. Browsing, which is enabled, Dolly, which is enabled, which is used for image generation, and code, which executes code using the code interpreter. We also have this to enable for new chats, and if we toggle this on, it essentially turns everything on this page on. Right now it's disabled, so we're just starting from scratch every single time. But if you want to add some custom instructions in there and then enable for new chats, it will automatically enable it for any new chats that you do. Now, before we move on to number 5 here, I'd want to do a quick shout out for our AI newsletter, Neural Frontier. If you don't know about it, essentially we post about once a week or so AI news, updates, tools, pretty much everything you need to know as somebody who's using AI in 2024 and beyond to be the most effective that you can be in whatever capacity that you use AI in, for your personal use, for your job, however you may use it. With our newsletter, we compact all the information that's relevant to you and all the AI stuff that's happened in the community into one simple, easy to read newsletter. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link to it down in the description below. The 5th item on our list here is called command chaining. It's adding more than one question or instruction to a single ChatGPT prompt to get more than one result. So let's say, for example, here that I want the calories laid out in, say like a template or something, and I want more detail. Well, as opposed to just doing give me more detail, send, I want calories, send, and then just doing one instruction one at a time, I can actually put that all in at once. So I can say, give me more detail, then write this in a report, then add the calories together with detailed responses. So now I've got a chain of commands for ChatGPT to execute instead of just give me more detail. So now it's chaining the command together and giving me a report with more detail in addition to actually adding in the calories in that report. It's chained those commands together so that I can give multiple instructions to get more of a response that would suit what I actually intended the first time around, without having to have multiple conversations back and forth just to reach that basic level of what I actually wanted in the first place. Now, as we can see here, it's done the report. So now it's doing the caloric summary. So it's putting all those things together right there and then adding a conclusion, which brings us on to number 6. Bringing us on to number 6 here, creating templates for ChatGPT. If you're not going to go and create your own custom GPTs, which we'll get to a little bit later, you can actually have ChatGPT create some templates for you so that, again, you're not starting from scratch in every single conversation. So let's say I was super satisfied with this meal plan and I was like, yes, this is great. I want to be able to add it to different styles of meal plans that I want in the same format as this. But I don't want to go through the process of asking each individual step as it carefully crafts the report every single time. I just want a basic template that I can give ChatGPT and say with my little instructions, whatever those new instructions may be, and then have it just go. I don't want to have that conversation back and forth a million times just to get this basic template every single time. So in this case, I'm just going to say, create a template that I can put back into ChatGPT for any new future meal plans. So now I've put in a little prompt here that says, create a template that I can enter into ChatGPT to get meal plans this detailed in the future. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit send here. And what it's actually gonna do is it's gonna create that request template. So it's basically going to give me something that I can enter into ChatGPT along with a little bit of custom instructions that would allow me to go and make a much more efficient meal plan without having to have the conversations. It has everything with the total calories, all of this we can see right there. And this is what it's actually going to give me. So it gives me it in the form of code, but also it gives me the form of it is just text. So now we have our template. So let's say I wanted to do this and I'm going to say, okay, copy this and I'll say using this template. Okay, so now I've put the template in, and now the little bit of custom instructions that I'm gonna give it are, I want to be in a calorie deficit, not a surplus. So now we've given it the template we just created, but we're also adding the custom instruction of saying, adjust this so that I am in a calorie deficit with my meal plan. We're gonna go ahead and hit enter on that. And what it's automatically gonna do is go and make that request for a customized meal plan with a calorie deficit using that template. Now, number 7 here might be a little bit controversial, but if you stick with me, I promise it's worth it. Now, in step number 5, I talked about command chaining, where you can have multiple instructions one after the other and have ChatGPT execute those. Now, that's great for very simplified questions, but when things get a little bit more complex, it's very, very hard for ChatGPT to actually fulfill those instructions at a level that is adequate if you have 14 or so instructions in there. So with multi-step querying, you can basically get ChatGPT to understand really complex subjects by simply walking it up the stairs, one complex topic at a time. So let's say, for example, we're on a new chat here, and I want to learn everything there is to know about blockchain. So I'm going to say, tell me about blockchain. And so that's a very simple question. Tell me about blockchain. ChatGPT is going to give me the basic response for what blockchain is. But now we're going to ask it a slightly more complex question. Something like, tell me everything there is to know about the history of blockchain. Now, ChatGPT isn't just giving it to me as if I'm some nobody. ChatGPT now has the resources and context to understand that I'm someone who doesn't know very much about blockchain. This is evident by the fact that I just asked the question, what is blockchain? At this point, ChatGPT can curate a response that goes under the understanding that I don't actually know that much about blockchain. I'm someone who doesn't understand all the technical jargon, so it's not going to go and put all that technical jargon in because it understands that context. So now ChatGPT is going to go and create the entire history of blockchain right in this browser. So now ChatGPT has given us everything there is to know as someone who doesn't know about blockchain, the history of blockchain. And now that we have a little bit more context and a little bit more resources for ChatGPT, we're going to ask it something like, well, how does this apply to the supply industry? Something that wouldn't be as well understood if I just asked it out of the blue, but now that ChatGPT has a context and understanding for where I'm coming from, we can get this off the ground. How does blockchain apply to the supply chain industry? So there we can go and post that, and now ChatGPT is going to carefully craft my response based on the understanding that 1, I am someone who doesn't know that much about blockchain at all. 2, I'm someone who's just learning about blockchain's history for the first time. And 3, ChatGPT now knows that I'm someone who's looking to apply blockchain to the supply chain industry. And that gives it more context, more resources, and more information from which to pull from to give me the optimal output. This goes directly into step number 8, which is asking simple questions to start out with, and then as you continue in the conversation, progressively make your questions more and more sophisticated so that ChatGPT has more of a wealth of resources to pull from as opposed to just asking an insanely complicated question out of the blue, with ChatGPT pulling from a bunch of random different sources because it doesn't know the context in which you're asking. And that's exactly what I've done here. I've asked a simple question about blockchain, and then about blockchain's history, and then now how blockchain relates to another industry. But let's say I didn't like this answer. Let's say I didn't like streamlined auditing. Nope, streamlined auditing. I'm gonna say, nope, streamlined auditing should be different. I didn't like that response there. And so it's gonna give me a revised explanation of streamlined auditing. Or if I read this and I'm like, that doesn't really make sense to me. That doesn't make sense. Explain it to me in simpler terms. Okay, blockchain makes the auditing process easier. Okay, unchangeable records, automated data recording. Okay, perfect. So now I can ask ChatGPT to revise specific parts about what it's done to actually cater to me and what I want. And that is step number 9. Telling ChatGPT that no, something it gave me was not what I was intending and it should go and revise it. I'm going to give it a little bit more context about what I actually meant, and ChatGPT is going to try and further resolve an actual statement or response that is matching my expectations. All right, step number 10 here to turn you into a ChatGPT power user is to have effective utilization of not only the plugins, but also the custom GPTs. So let's say for this instance, it's pulled all the information and it's really just not what I'm looking for. I can tell it to browse the web and compare what it wrote to what is actually in publicly available information. So let's say here, compare your response to the web resources. And so when I say compare your response to the web resources, now it's actually searching on Google. Yeah, you can see it just searched 6 sites for blockchain technology. So now it's giving me those key benefits for auditing, but it's also giving me links. I can actually go and verify what ChatGPT is saying because ChatGPT isn't right 100% of the time. It can make mistakes. But if I have it go and audit itself by looking up online what it actually should be looking for and comparing that to what ChatGPT wrote, I can get ChatGPT to confirm the information is correct itself without me having to go do a bunch of digging. And if I do want to go do that digging, I can have links provided directly by ChatGPT to me so that I can manually verify what it's telling me myself. In addition to that here, the Explore GPT section allows you to discover and create custom versions of ChatGPT that combine the instructions, extra knowledge, and any combination of skills. Everything that we've talked about in this video, providing more context, specificity in your prompts, all of them are created in custom GPTs towards a specific topic. For this, we have things like kayak, resume, mermaid chart, diagrams and charts, I guess if that's what you want to create charts. We have image generators, Scholar GPT, enhanced research with 200 million plus resources and built-in critical reading skills, access Google Scholar, PubMed. There's a whole bunch of things that are built natively into these GPTs that automatically save you the time from having to write the custom instructions and the custom prompts. You can simply pick any one of these. And so let's say Canva. If I wanted to design something, I could just tell it what I wanted to design, and the Canva GPT would automatically take everything I said and put it within the context of Canva in the way that it was programmed with those custom instructions. It saves me a whole bunch of time from having to write things out from scratch. At the end of the day, what it means to be a GPT power user is being someone who, first of all, uses ChatGPT effectively, writes efficient prompts, and most importantly, writes the best prompts and gets the best results in the least amount of time. Thank you so much for watching. As always, my name is Josh Mountain, and I'll leave that link to our AI newsletter in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.